Hi, class. Welcome to week 3, DES 116. I guess the first thing that I'd like to talk about is that in week 3, which is what we are in right now, week 4 will not be next week. As I understand it, week 4 will be the week of January 4th to January 9th. That's to allow us the time we need for our holiday vacation. So I just wanted to let you know that this week, we're going to have a regular week and everything should be done at a regular time. What I would really like to see happen, what I hope you're going to be able to do, is get everything caught up and be able to walk away for your week's vacation clean and not having to worry about anything hanging over your head or submitting things over the holiday. So, obviously that's up to you, but it would be a great opportunity to get things all caught up so that you can go away and enjoy the holidays and not have to worry about anything until January 4th, January 9th. Okay? I'm pretty sure that's what the date is. You can double check me on this, but that's the way I understand it. So I thought I'd mention that first. And what I'd like to start off with tonight is a discussion of triadic and split complementary color schemes. One of the reasons that I'm discussing this is because your discussion this week will be on the triadic and split complementary color scheme. And what you're going to do is you're going to go online and you're again going to look for examples of professional designs which are utilizing either triadic or split complementary design themes. And what they're going to ask you to do is try to determine, is there an intended audience for each design? Who would be the target? When you look at the design, you're going to look at it in context of what the design is and, of course, how it's colored. I think they probably, and this is where what I think they're going after here, they're probably used hand in hand to create a sort of a mood of some kind. So that's what they're really trying to figure out. What is the mood that's trying to be created, and who would that mood be trying to affect? Is there a particular target audience for this thing? And this should be done, and again, I mentioned this to you. You guys seem to be doing pretty good with this. My other class, which I'm very surprised, they're a 300 level class. They're having more problems than you. You guys are doing a lot better, but I still think it's important for me to mention this so that you clearly understand that I have a certain grading rubric that I must follow. And in order for me to give you the best possible grade, your initial discussion has to be in no later than the end of the day, Wednesday. If it's any later than Wednesday, I'm going to have to deduct a certain amount of points for being late. That's just the way it is. Not my rule, it's the school's rule. And I want to make a big point of this so that since you're in a 100 level course, you're going to be going through many more 100 level courses, and you're going to go through some 200 and 300 level courses. So you're going to be doing, I pretty much guarantee you're going to be doing discussions like this every single mod. Every single course will have discussions each week. And you should really get into the idea that, your first discussion must be in no later than Wednesday. Try to also follow the rules as strictly as you possibly can. Because again, if they're telling you to do very specific things, you need to follow those directions as best as you possibly can, which means that I'll talk about stuff like this in class, but you need to read your instructions carefully and understand what it is that they're asking you to do and make sure that you do that. One thing I want to point out to you is that I work as a professional designer, and one of the things that I see that's very similar to what goes on when you're doing this sort of thing is that, I get instructions. I get all kinds of instructions from different people. I have to keep track of every single instruction that I get. I have to make sure that I try to deal with every single issue or every single instruction somebody hands me, or a suggestion. I may not choose to use the suggestion. If I choose not to use the suggestion, of course, this is a real world situation, I have to have a rationale ready when I'm challenged about it, because I will be challenged about it. So, you know, why I'm saying this to you is that everything that you do in these courses, believe it or not, is preparing you to deal with the real world environment of being a graphic designer. You're going to work for people, and people are going to work with you, and they're going to give you instructions. They're going to look at your work. They're going to critique your work. You need to understand all this. You need to be able to deal with this. So, you know, I don't want you to take any of this lightly. And again, this is going to come up over and over and over again. So if you get used to the idea that by Wednesday your main post gets in, and okay, so maybe Wednesday night you also let's look and see who other posts are in there, and while you're in there posting your main post, maybe you drop one of the feedback on one of your classmates that same night. And then you come back the next night. And what does it take? 5 minutes to drop feedback on another one of your fellow students? Now you've got 2 separate nights of feedback, which I would accept, and they would be early in the week, which would be good, and it would give them the opportunity to reply to you. That brings me to another issue that I want to mention about discussions. The idea that you can wait until the very last day, the very last minute, to put replies into students. Yeah, you could do that, but you know what I'm going to do to you? I'm going to deduct points, because this is a discussion. And what is a discussion? A discussion is where you are communicating back and forth with students. There is really no way for a student to reply to you at all if you wait until the very last minute. I've got a 300 level class where I've been through arguments with about 3 or 4 students because they're insisting they're getting these things in on time, because it says, oh, you have until the end of the day Saturday. Yes, that's what it says. But if you really look and read your rubric on this, you'll see that that's not what they're saying. They're saying that you basically should be putting in 2 replies early enough in the week that the students, anywhere from, say, Wednesday to Friday are the days that you really should be putting replies in. Those are the days that I'm looking for replies from you for. So this way the students really have the opportunity to look at your reply and maybe reply back to you. If they don't reply back to you, well, that's okay too. But the bottom line is, when I go to do the checking, when I do the grading, I look at your post, and instead of seeing that you put in 2 replies 8 hours ago, which gives nobody any time to reply to it, I see that your replies were posted on Friday and Thursday, or your replies were posted Wednesday and Thursday. And I'm saying to myself, okay, the main post in is in on time. She's got a reply in. They got a reply in on Wednesday night and a reply in on Tuesday. There you go. That's the proper form for this. So it's very important that you understand this. And you might as well start learning it and start doing it now. As I say, every single course that you go through, you're going to have this happening. You're going to have these discussions. And now I'm noticing in my 300 level course that for their assessments, they're actually doing another form of discussion where they're discussing their projects with each other. So now you got a secondary type of discussion going on. So I really mean this when I say it. Please get used to the idea that in order to get a full grade, you post your main post no later than the end of the day Wednesday, and then on 2 separate days, give me a reply to 2 different students. So I can look at the dates and realize that there are 2 different days. Also, it shows me that you have enough interest to come in here for even a short period of time and do what you're expected to do. Now, your initial post will include your embedded images as well as color links and color wheel proofs. And what it's telling you, and again, I want you to read these instructions completely. Don't let Adobe Color Select select the test colors for you. You need to choose the most represented dominant color in each image. When you choose your 5 testing points for any image, stay away from the edge where anti-aliasing distorts your color measurement. So essentially what it's saying is, when you're doing this, I assume you'll probably do this in Photoshop because you're working with bitmaps here. You can sample color. You can sample different numbers of color. You can do a pinpoint sampling. You could do a 3x3, a 5x5, a 10x10, and sample different types of areas of color. So you need to realize that, and you need to, and maybe if I get a chance later on when I'm in Photoshop fooling around with you, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So anyway, that's what you need to do for your discussion. Again, briefly, I am going to go through best practices for discussions. I do this so that I have the ability to turn around and say to you later on, you know, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and I discussed it with you in class. So here are the best practices for discussions. Images. Students should embed images into their discussion posts. This is the most important thing for all of you to understand. We're all graphic designers here. Our stock and trade are images. So whenever you discuss something, on some level, you're discussing it by virtue of some sort of an image. So it would seem ridiculous for you not to include an image if you're talking about something that's relating to an image. So it's always a good idea when you're creating your discussion posts that you snag an image, either online or something that you've created, depending upon what it is that you're discussing, an image or images that relate to the topic that you're going over. Readers want to see images alongside texts. Don't just link them or place them. Make sure that you size them. That's another thing. You don't need them to be huge images. So really what you could do is, if you're going to be putting a couple of images in, you probably need to just go in to Photoshop with the images, and I do this frequently myself. Go into Photoshop and make a determination how big you want this image to be. What, 300 by 300 if it's a square, maybe, you know, something like that. And size it accordingly. You could crop it if there's a certain area you want. You can crop it. Make sure that it's no more than 72 pixels per inch. I hope you know how to do all this stuff. Maybe later on I'll cover a little bit of this. Again, I don't know exactly how much you know about Illustrator and Photoshop yet. Nobody's communicated with me about it, so I can't really say for sure. Students should be able to upload images and other files to Canvas. You should know how to do this right now. There is a guide, and again, I am reading this, Best Practices for Discussions. I'm reading it right from your course material. So this is stuff that you can go in and look at yourself. There's a guide, and it gives you a link to that guide. That guide link will take you right to where it describes exactly how to do this. You also should know that I'm available, this mod, on Saturday evenings in Blackboard Collaborate. Unfortunately, only Saturday evenings this mod, because I'm teaching 2 courses, and I really can't really afford much more time. So I'm in only Saturday nights, and that's from 7 o'clock until midnight, Saturday nights. I've had some of my students from my other course come in. You're welcome to come in if you want me to give a critique before you submit to me, to make sure that what you're submitting to me is going to be proper. If you want to just you know, come in and show me, or if you are really having a problem with something, feel free to come in, and hopefully I'll be able to help you with that. While creating your discussions, initial post, and peer replies, students should be able to link to uploaded images into their personal files. And again, there's a link here that shows you exactly how to do that. Remember, text is another design element. We are designers here. So essentially, what they're looking for you to do is to not take this lightly. They really want you to start taking this seriously. Text is another design element. Own set of rules: grammar, spelling, punctuation, and tone. Think about these things when you write. Don't just slam things in. I mean, if you do, I may take points off. If I look at what you're writing and I'm not happy with the way you're writing it, I'm going to tell you what I don't like about it. Treat your post like a book designer. Give your post headers. You should know what a header is. If you have a header, it's basically a larger, bolder font that will be basically the headline of your particular topic. If there's a subhead required, you'll probably go with bold, but a smaller size font for that. This is the kind of stuff you see in magazines all the time. You should know at least something about this. Bold-face things to separate them from normal paragraphs. You can also italicize things, maybe things that are quoted or things that you want to put special emphasis on. And try to stay away from using multiple fonts. Just stay in with one particular font. Just make it very neat and professional looking. The readers can view the images discussed in the subsequent text. You should go the extra mile, including not being limited to image captions. So again, sometimes you might want to put a caption into your images if you think that it would serve a particular purpose. Really, just take pride in your work. That's what this whole thing is all about. It's your expression of who you are and the designer that you want to be. That's what this is really all about. That's why you're here. You're here to learn, and you're also here to develop that sense. Listen, you're going to go out and you're going to be trying to get hired by people who have jobs. There are jobs out there. Believe me. And there are people out there that are trying to get those jobs, and you're going to be competing with these people. So everything that you do will be part of your presentation. So you need to realize that in order to get that job, the person looking at you for that job has to make a decision about you over everybody else. Now, what's going to make them make that decision is the way you present yourself, not just walking in and shaking hands, but the way you present yourself in your resume, the way you present yourself in your portfolio. Every single thing that you do is looked upon in context of, here's this guy, here's that guy, and that guy. Which one of the three do I really want? In order for you to get that job, you have to be the best. So all I'm saying to you is to do the very best you can to be your best, and present that to me so I can see that. Don't forget APA formatted inline captions, APA formatted reference, grammar, spelling, and punctuation. All these things matter. Please take the time to write this correctly and do everything that you can do to make this a very professional looking presentation. Failure to follow directions may result in a 0 score, depending upon the instructor. I'm not a bad instructor. I'm not a harsh instructor. I really am not. Because I also realize that you guys are in a 100 level course. I'm a lot stricter with a 300 level course than I am with you. And I've had several arguments with students about that. And I literally said to them, look, you're in a 300 level course. You've been through 100, you've been through 200. I expect more out of you than I do out of a 100 level course. That doesn't mean that I feel you people should just get away with murder because you're in a 100 level course. I am trying to train you exactly the same way as I train my 300 level course. Major difference is, of course, that you are going to get to 200 and 300 level. They have gotten there already. So they should have been through a bunch of different instructors like myself, different ones. And each one of them should have the ability to tell them many of the same thing that I'm telling you tonight. Maybe you've heard all this before, but I am telling you flat out, it's very important. Common problems in discussion posts. I really think it's important to read. Failure to follow directions. There's your most common problem in discussion posts. Failure to follow directions. So really, I'm sitting here spending the time tonight talking to you about directions because I think it's important for me to do that so that if, say, you don't follow directions and I hit you for it, and you turn around and say something to me, I can say, look, I covered this as completely as I could possibly do in week 3. so you should be well aware of this. And I also point out to you again, you can go into your book and you can read this. You can go in online, to your page and read this. Failure to include Adobe Color Wheel proof. Posting images or quotes found on the first Google search page. Really what that means essentially is that don't be lazy. Go in and do a little bit of searching on this. Spend a few minutes with it. Listen, I know you're busy. I am too. I got things to do. But you know what? We also have responsibilities. Not only do you have a responsibility to me and the school, but you have a responsibility to yourself. That's what's more important. You need to find a way to budget your time so that you can do what you have to do and get the best possible outcome from the training that you're getting at this school. That's what it really comes down to. It comes down to you. I can only sit here and say things to you and show you things. You're the one that has to literally open up the computer, turn on the program, and do the assignment and go the extra mile. It's all on you. Images or quotes hastily chosen or to complete the exercise, but are of no interest in the writer or the reader. So in other words, make whatever you put into your posting relevant. It really needs to be relevant. Don't put things in if you don't have to. Unless, of course, there's something that you saw that you just got to show the class. You want to share it with the class. It would be nice if the thing that you're showing us could somehow or other be blended into your topic. But if you had something that you want to show us, there's no problem with that. Initial post, not submitted by due date, Wednesday. There it is. It says it right there, Wednesday. By the end of the day, must be in. The initial post must be in by Wednesday. Failure to follow directions may result in a 0 score, depending upon the instructor. I'll read that again. So, I mean, am I going to give you a 0 score for not posting by Wednesday? No. There is very few things that alone would cause you to not get any score. And as a matter of fact, I've had the worst people get some kind of a score out of me. They literally have to submit nothing to get a 0. It's just that simple. Initial post does not include correct formatted APA references and or correct formatted APA inline citation. So essentially, you know, you're missing part of your presentation. That's what it comes down to. Make your presentation based on the instructions you're given here. That's what it really comes down to. Initial post and both peer responses submitted on the same day. Now, it doesn't say or last minute here. It does say it in the rubric. And I am going to say it. Do not submit responses on the last day. And the reason is it's a discussion. And you can't really put a discussion question in on the last day and expect somebody at the end of the week, last day of discussion, to spot it and respond to it. It doesn't make sense. So again, please, for my benefit, do not submit last minute, meaning on the last day. You've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Try to keep your responses on those days and make sure that your initial post is on Wednesday. One or both peer responses are missing. If you drop one peer response, you're going to lose 1/3 of your grade. If you don't put in 2 responses, you're going to lose half your grade, because there are 3 things you're supposed to do. And I will knock off 1/3 or 1/2 of your grade if you don't do these things. I'm trying to teach you that you can't do this. In the real world, if somebody gives me a project that includes 5 steps, essential steps, and a certain time frame to do it, which I agree upon, if in that time frame I get only 3 done and I'm missing 2, I better have a very good reason why I didn't make those 2 other steps, because I told them I would be able to do it. So you see, it's up to us to live up to our agreements with things. And when you get into a work situation, when you're lucky enough to get that job, and when you start working and you say to yourself, I finally made it. I'm a graphic designer. I'm working at this place for these people. I'm doing this great work. I'm getting paid to do it. You want to keep that job. And that's what it really comes down to, you being professional. Be professional in your class. If you're professional in your class, you will ultimately end up being a professional when you start work. Very important for you to understand this. Initial post includes long quotations exceeding 30% of the minimum word count of the entire post. Your initial post is supposed to be 150 words. If you take a third or more and just quote somebody, I mean, you're not really, all you're doing is taking somebody else's words and presenting that as part of your overall thesis. I mean, the bottom line is, you know, what you do is if you want to, you're going to subset. You're going to quote somebody's subset. You just give a very brief quotation from the bigger context of the quote and put it in your own words. I mean, come on. Each peer response consists of less than 50 words. So in other words, it's not saying that, oh, well, it's only 50 words. It's saying that common problems are each peer response consists of less than 50 words. So essentially what it's telling you is be responsive. Say something. Don't just come in and say, I liked your stuff very much. I agree with what you had to say. Thank you very much. See you next week. That is not a reply. You need to really have a discussion, and a discussion means that you're going to put in a paragraph or so of information based on your feelings or your thinking about whatever it is that you guys are discussing in the post. So again, very important that you understand these things and you do these things. I am not as critical with a 100-level course as I am with a 300-level course. I admit that openly. Don't take advantage of me, because if I feel as if I'm being taken advantage of, I'll whack you. And then you're going to be saying to me, what happened? How come I got hit for points? And I'll say, because I don't think you're taking me seriously, and I don't think you're listening to me, and I don't think you're understanding. You know, again, you're going to be working someday. You need to be a professional. You need to be able to stand in front of somebody and convince those people that you are there for them 110%. And I'm talking about before you get the job, when you get the job, and after you've had the job. They need to feel every single day that you're there 110% for them. They're paying you. That's what it really comes down to. You need to be professional. And being professional means you go the extra mile. So again, not only for my grade, but for yourself. If you learn to be this way, if you act this way, you will become this way. And that will be good for you in the end. So now we got our assignment 3, photo project, creating color harmonies. This is due by Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time, end of week 3 for 120 points. Now, if people get their assignments in early, and I check them early, and I have a critique, which means that I ask them to do something a little different. If they can get that done before the end of the week, I generally give them a little bit more points. In other words, if I give them, instead of 120 points, let's say I give them 110 points. If they get it in the next day and they've corrected what I've critiqued them on, I would not be unhappy at all to go back up to like 119 or even 120 if they did an excellent job with it, because they did it within the time frame. So this is something I mentioned to you also. If you are late with your project, it doesn't mean you're going to fail your project. It means you'll get a 0. But if you are able to submit it late, and you contact me and notify me that you submitted it late, I will go in and I will hit you with a deduction for being late, but you'll get a grade on your project. I would rather you get it in on time, but you know what? We all live in the real world. Things happen. I've had jobs in the past week where I work where, you know, I've had a deadline and I wasn't able to meet that deadline. And, you know, I didn't get fired for it. The bottom line is there usually is a very good reason for that. And if you have an honestly really good reason for it, you know, I can't do all that much for you other than, you know, I will deduct some points for it being late, but I will certainly get you a grade when it's submitted to me, okay? So here's what we're going to do here. For your assignment, week 3 project. You're going to choose 3 of your favorite color schemes. We've discussed many in class so far. We'll be discussing some more tonight, and we'll be playing around with Photoshop later. Complementary, analogous, split complementary, triadic, double complementary, or monochromatic. And you're going to set up a still life. Basically, you're going to come up with some kind of a graphic visual, elements that you choose yourself. You're going to compose them, and you'll set up a still life or a portrait for each of your 3 chosen color schemes. For each color scheme, you should take at least 20 photos so that you can practice with different lighting, arrangements, compositions, and angles. You have to take 20 exactly? No. But what they're basically saying is don't just go and pop off a shot and call it a day. Set up and create several different shots, move around a little bit, you know, get different angles, try moving your lighting so that you get shadows and all that. Play a little bit with this. Practice different lighting, arrangements, compositions, angles, and frame size. After you have taken 60 photos or more, turn in your 3 favorite photos for grading. So what you're going to do is just like any other photographer would do. He will go through and take a look at his photos, and he will choose 3. Hold on for 1 minute. I'm recording. Sorry. Turn in your 3 favorite photos for grading. You can adjust the color tones and exposure in Photoshop. I hope you know how to do this. What I am going to do is I'm going to go over some of this stuff tonight with you. I'll talk and show you a little bit about Photoshop and how to work with it. Again, I don't really have any way of knowing how much you know about Photoshop because nobody's here to talk to me about this. So again, I can't really, you know, question anybody to find out where you are with any of this. So anyway, that's what you're going to be doing. They should be as professional as possible and portfolio worthy. Grainy photographs will not count. Include the Adobe Color Proofs for all 3 final photos. These should not be photographs you have taken for any other reason. So essentially what they're just saying is don't just go and grab photos that you took on your vacation or something like that. Literally make some sort of a still life of some kind. Create something. It could be simple. It could be complex. You decide, and maybe have something in mind when you do it. Think about what you are creating as far as the visual is concerned, but also think about the fact that, you know, you're going to be playing around with lighting, so you want to establish a mood. So, you know, again, spend some time thinking about what you're doing. You should submit the assignment as a 6-page PDF document in the following order: 1 photo, 1 color harmony, Adobe Color Proof of Color Harmony 1, Photo 2, Color Harmony 2, Adobe Photo Proof of Color Harmony 2, Photo 3, Color Harmony 3, Adobe Color Proof of Color Harmony 3. So get this, since you're going to be doing this as a 6-page PDF document, what I would recommend that you do is that you, in the end, put this together in Adobe InDesign. So I will try to give you a very brief demonstration of Adobe InDesign tonight. Again, I just don't know how much you know about these programs, so I want to give you at least a little bit of an idea of how to go about doing this so that it makes it easier for you. If I'm lucky, you'll know these things. If I'm not lucky, I can show you a couple of things so that you don't get lost so easy. And then your assessment 3, which will be desaturation, partial, selective, and complete saturation or desaturation. And again, this is due by Friday. The written assessment. This is where we now are back to a written assessment. Your finished paper, an essay, should be a minimum of 500 words and will consist of 3 distinct sections, 1 for each image. So remember now, like I say, you're going to try to make this thing as much like a look of a book as you possibly can. Make it look professional. Put together something that visually can impress somebody. Submit your paper as a properly formatted professional essay, complete with a title page. Make sure all images are large enough to be viewed and enjoyed. So, You don't have to make huge images, but you can work in different size images if necessary or if required. You might have one dominant image and then the others are subordinate images. I have no idea exactly what you're going to do, and I can't even predict it because I have no idea what your pictures will be and no idea how you're going to word your topic. So again, that's up to each of you individually to come up with your own scheme, with your own idea as to how you're going to approach this. All right? Submit finished essay as a single PDF document. Since you're designers, use Adobe InDesign to create your presentation, not Microsoft Word. So if I get something that was made in Word, I'm going to have to knock you down. So I will make sure tonight that I show you how to create a 6-page, I will show you how to make a basic 6-page InDesign document, how to set it up. And you can take it from there, okay? I also will show you how to export it as a PDF, just so that you see me do it and you don't have to kill yourself if you're not sure of the program. Again, I'm just not sure what you know and what you don't know because I haven't really had the opportunity to question on anything. So, InDesign document. Now, partial desaturation. I'm going to demonstrate this tonight in Photoshop. The first image should be a design that makes excellent use of partial desaturation. This design should not be completely grayscale, just desaturated. And there's a major difference between the two. When you go grayscale, you literally throw away all of your colors except your grayscale colors. There's only gray in there. There's no other colors anymore. When you desaturate something, what you're doing essentially is you're using a filter, really a layer filter, which is going to desaturate to whatever level you want. So I'm going to be playing around with that shortly, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You can use Park Harrison as an excellent example of this style. You can view Park Harrison. I suppose that's something in your book. Okay, and again, who is the intended audience for this design? What is the mood of design? You're going to find that adding color to regular photos, if you take a standard photo, and this is something that they do in movies constantly. I mean, many, many times you'll see a movie that's filmed in this very strange kind of very dour color scheme. And basically, if you were to see the original film, it would be shot in normal. It would look like a normal film. But if you left it as a normal film, it just wouldn't have the same impact as if they include a color scheme to it to sort of change the mood. And that's what's done a lot of times. So what kind of mood are you going for when you do this? Who is the intended audience? How does the designer accomplish this mood using composition, hue, desaturation, and color value? Selective desaturation. The second image should be a design that makes excellent use of selective saturation or desaturation. So in other words, you can even go in, and I'm going to show you how. I'll show you one way to do this. There's more than one way, but I'll show you at least one way tonight that I achieved this in Adobe Photoshop. Who is the intended audience again? What is the mood, and how does the designer accomplish the mood using composition, selective desaturation, hue, and color value? Okay, so those are basically the instructions for you for the night. I have a couple of slides here. This goes back to our discussion, color theory. Here you have a triad of color. Yellow, red, and blue, right? There's your triad of color. This just happens to be the primary colors, a triad of primary colors. And here is the color wheel, and it's a little hard for you to read this, but it's showing you every triadic color scheme in here. Again, it's almost impossible for you to read, but you can kind of guess, you know, by just knowing basically what the triadic color is doing, which means essentially it's giving you a 3-point read of colors based on equal space of color. Okay, so that's what's going on here. And then again, this is the color triad, a primary triad, red, yellow, and blue. They're called primary colors because you can use these 3 colors to mix any other color. Inside the wheel is an equilateral triangle that connects these colors. And as you rotate that equilateral triangle, you'll move from color to color. It will automatically hit on the primary, or I'm sorry, the triadic relationship of colors. As long as you keep that triangle true, you spin it, you'll get your colors. And again, secondary triad, orange, green, and violet. These colors are built by combining two primary colors. So each one of those colors is an equal mix of two primary colors. Yellow and red make orange. Yellow and blue make green. Red and blue make violet. This shows this relationship. We can use an inverted triangle. So essentially, you're inverting the triangle on this particular one here. And then here are tertiary triads, and they're showing you actually two sets of tertiary triangles and sets of colors. Combining the primary color with one of its secondary colors produces a tertiary color. For example, yellow, a primary color, combines with orange to make yellow-orange. So, and then split complementary, I believe we spoke about this last week. Variation of the complementary scheme uses a base color and two colors adjacent to its complement. So you're getting 3 points, but they're not equally divided points. What you're doing is you're taking a primary color, and instead of choosing its complement, you're going on either side of its complement. You're splitting the complement by going one over on each end to contrast against your complement of the other on the other side. And usually it has the same strong visual contrast as a complement, but it's more difficult to mess up. I'm not exactly sure what they mean mess up. I guess it's difficult for you to mess up in terms of color. How you generally work with things like this is that you generally pick one color as a dominant color, and the other two colors would be your subordinate colors. So you wouldn't use them equally. You would probably use one as a dominating color, and the other two would be in a supportive role in your composition. And split complementary color scheme is less tension. The split complementary color scheme is often a good choice for beginners because it's difficult to mess up. When it says it has less tension, I think what it's trying to say is if you put the the green and the red side by side, they have a stronger level of tension if you butt them up to one another than if you butt them against the red violet or the red yellow or red orange. I'm sorry. The colors will be less tense with each other. So that's it. Those are my my slides for tonight. I don't have too many. I mean my PowerPoint for tonight. I don't have too many of them, so I'm going to ditch that. And I have some videos here. I picked some videos for you to look at because, again, there's several things that talk about using color in Photoshop. And what I'm going to be doing ultimately is I'm going to be going into Photoshop next, and I'm going to be playing around a little bit. So I figured what I would do is I would show you some of the videos that I found that I think maybe might help a little bit and show you some things that will make it easier for you. I hope will make it easier for you. So this one is how to color in Photoshop using a split complementary palette. Again, you know, I tried to find topics that related to the projects that you're going to be working on. It was a little bit difficult, so I did the best I could to find videos that would help you. So we'll see how these work.
Hey everyone, Zachary Asman here. In this lesson, I'm going to be talking about how to paint digitally and get good colors. This is something I get asked often, which is, you know, how do I get realistic colors in my painting? So, for example, there's this painting I did, and the colors kind of work together. And I'm going to show you, you know, what I use. So what that is a split complementary palette. And this is my site, www.cycra.net, and if you go here and you click in the resources section and you scroll down, you'll see a link here to Cycra's split complementary color palette. So what you're going to want to do, first of all, is download this. So just click download color palette, and then just save this image. And then next step is we're going to bring it into Photoshop. All right, so now I have my split complementary palette open up in Photoshop. And it's a PNG image, so what you'll notice is that it starts at layer 0, and it's got transparency. So you'll want to make sure your layers window is open for this. If it's not, go to Window and select Layers, or press F7. So F7 it shows your layers window. And now the first thing we're going to do is create 2 new layers. So just going to click the button here. It's near the trash can, and that's for create a new layer. So I'm just going to hit that twice. And now I'm going to drag this layer with the palette into the middle. So now we have a layer on top, and our palette, and a layer on the bottom. And now the bottom layer is going to be a background. So I'm just going to fill that with white, and just going to hit D to get the default black and white. And then Control Backspace, which is just fill with background color. Remember, Alt Backspace is fill with foreground color. So Control Backspace to fill with the background color. And now the only layer I'm going to be really painting with is this layer on top. So I'm going to actually treat this very much like traditional painting. And real quick, I'm going to go over split complementary palette and what that is. So here's your, the palette I guess you would learn in school, where you have your red, your blue, and your yellow. And these are the primary colors. If you're in digital, we have red, green, and blue instead of red, blue, and yellow. But let's stick with traditional, because one of the things I've found is that because most people who start out begin with traditional, you want a smooth way to transition. So here we have our primaries, red, blue, and yellow. Now with a split complementary, instead of having red, blue, and yellow, you pick one color, so let's say red, and then the complement to red is green. So here's complement. And then split is just to each side of the complement. So here you have like this teal-ish color and this yellow-green. So you replace the blue and the yellow with the blue-green and yellow-green. And if you were using blue, for instance, your complement is orange, so right across is orange. And then the split complements would be this red, orange, and yellow, orange. I'm not going to go into too much more detail beyond that, because actually on the site Pencil Kings, you don't know how to get there. Again, on my website, scroll down and there's online art instruction. The first link is Pencil Kings. But here I have a tutorial on exactly how I did that image in the beginning, this realistic painting, and I go into a bit more detail explaining just what a split complementary palette is. So basically, you just need to know that this is a split complementary palette, and these are the split complements, and these are the colors in between. And now we're going to go about it pretty much as if it was traditional painting. And by that, what I mean is you're going to take colors and actually put them down and then mix them, so mix colors into each other. But first, I just want to go over one more thing, which is you would have this, but you're going to want to save this as a different file. So, file save as, because you want one palette that is basically your template that you can always go to, and you load that up. And then depending on what image you're working on and what certain palette you want, you're going to alter that. I'm just going to show you how we go about doing that. So first of all, the color in the top left, so right here, this is our dominant. And that means that, what the general tone of the painting is probably going to be this. And for me, because I work primarily with caricatures and things, often I'll pick the general skin tone of whatever the person is. So if the person's dark-skinned, I'll pick maybe a brown. If they're light-skinned, depends, whatever their skin is kind of based on. If I was doing an environment and let's say it's a rainy day and has a blue overtone, then I'm going to try and make this blue. But this is going to be my dominant. So when I go about adjusting this, all I do is I press Control U, and that brings up the hue and saturation. Alternatively, you could go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, bring that up. And then I just change the hue slider. Now you can also change the darkness. So if you want a low chroma image where everything's quite dark, you would lower this, or high chroma, raise this, and probably increase the saturation. But for the most part, I don't mess too much with saturation or lightness. I really just change the hue. So again, let's say I was doing a blue, a scene where things are primarily blue. I'm going to move it to a blue. And then I'll go ahead and start mixing my colors. I usually, if you have a reference image, that comes up. And then, you'd look at your reference. And you're not going to be able to mix the colors exactly as what's in your reference. Because you cannot. Like, if you look here, there is no really strong yellow. So no matter how hard I try, I'm not going to be able to get a strong yellow. But that's fine, because pretty much the biggest problem when people start color, especially digitally, is they click the color and they get this. And you have access to all these colors. And this is really where you run into problems when you're a beginner. When you're more experienced, it's fine. I tend to just use this and I'm okay with it because I've been using it a lot and I understand color theory and all that. But I find this is a simple way, is to just be limited. So it's true, you can't get a strong yellow, but you make do with what you have. And usually I'll start with, or often anyway, I start with a black and white image. And I've been asked this a lot. How do you take a black and white image and take it to color? And again, I'd refer you to the Pencil Kings video that really goes over that in detail. But real quick, let me just open up this image. And this is for a tutorial I'm working on for Pencil Kings. So this is kind of a sneak peek you guys are getting. But I'll start off with the gray image. So it's just all in black and white. And the palette I used for this one was this. So you'll see I actually had kind of an orangey tone as the dominant. And then I mixed my colors. And so I just filled the whole thing with that orange color and set the mode to color. So now everything, over here, see, everything gets this color. And then I start painting using the other colors. So more of these other colors I've mixed. And then I just start actually painting with the normal layer, but just mixing those colors and putting them down. So again, I can't get all the colors of the rainbow. So you will be limited, but that's actually a good thing. So let's say, so here's our color. And I'm just using the Alt key, or I actually have it mapped to my tablet. And what that does is it just brings up the eyedropper tool. You could just manually keep switching between brush and eyedropper. But for me, I just keep it on brush and pull down Alt, and it turns into the eyedropper. So I select the color, put it down, and then let's say I want to get I don't know, something in between these two. So then select this color, put it down, and just lightly go over it so I get a mid-tone color in between these two rather, and then I select that. Now I'm used to using my tablet quite a bit, so I have mine at opacity 100%. But if you're just starting out and you're not quite comfortable getting the transition, what I mean by, the pressure, you can't go from really light to dark just by how firm you press the pen to the tablet. If you can't do that yet, just lower your opacity to maybe, 50%, just something you're comfortable with so that you can, select a color, put it down, and you might have to go over it a couple of times, and then select another color, and then kind of just go over, and then again with the Alt key, you select the middle color, and I'm just going to raise it to 100% just because, that's what's easier for me. And that's it. That's how you mix your colors, and it's very much like traditional paint. So let's say I did want a yellow, and it's kind of bright. Well, my options are really to take this yellow-ish color and this reddish color and maybe, find color in between. And maybe for my image, this is going to represent yellow. Now, it doesn't look that yellow, but if most of my image is blue, then that color is going to seem more yellow. At least it will seem yellow relative to the other colors. So in an image, it's important to remember that whatever your color is dependent on what colors are around it. So this looks this way compared to this. So here we're in the palette itself, it seems more vibrant than when I have it here. Because it's beside this, these relatively dull colors. But when I put it beside another vibrant color, it kind of loses some of its intensity. But pretty much that's it. And when I want to get a dark, I'll mix a dark. So, and if you're working on top of a black and white layer and it's on color mode, you don't really need to worry about values too much because that's going to get taken care of in the grayscale stage of it. But pretty much that's it. Put down colors and just mix them as if you were painting traditionally and you had a palette and these are your paints. This is all you have to work with. So you do your best. And I find, you can get pretty good skin tones and nice in-between colors. And this is really what beginners have trouble with. People often get colors, way too bright. They'll think, okay, I want a yellow, and they'll pick something like this, put it down, and it just gets, out of control. So what you want is more of these subtle tones, these gradual transitions, and things being like that. And if I want to lighten a color, because the background is white, I just, I can use the background itself. So just, lightly put down the color, select it, and then put it down. And the reason I have this on a different layer is just so, I don't accidentally go over this palette and then have a problem. So again, remember, just open up the palette, save it as whatever you want, call it something else, and make sure you have these 3 layers. If it's easier for you to work on a gray background, you can just change the background layer to gray. The reason I don't like to do that too much is just because this helps with seeing values, but I don't really care too much about the values because I have that already dealt with in the black and white stage. And I like to use white to get tints. So that's why I use a white background. And I'm on the wrong layer, so a good idea probably would be after you set this up and you get this to whatever color you want, you would go ahead and just hit this black padlock, which locks the layer, and do that for the background as well. So now you really can only go on this layer, and if I went on this layer and tried to paint, it's not gonna let me paint. So because sometimes you'll paint on the wrong layer, and I've had a couple of times where I actually end up painting on the palette itself, and that's never good. So yeah, that's pretty much the palette I use. It's not something I use all the time now, but it really is helpful for beginners, especially if you're a bit timid or intimidated by this and just how many colors you have. And I guess that's it. And again, if you want more detailed explanations, I do have that tutorial on Pencil Kings. And I hope it helped, and thanks for watching.
Well, I thought that was a help. I thought it was a pretty good video. I spotted it and thought to myself, this is something that I myself have never done. I've never used that. I do use the color picker in exactly the way he described using the color picker. I've always used it that way because I was literally trained to use it that way. But I thought this was something that was rather interesting and worthy of showing you. You might want to go in, you might want to get that color wheel, and you might want to play around with it. So what I will do is at the end of the night, when I'm preparing my video upload, the course, the live session for tonight, I will see to it that these links are in announcements for you, so that you could actually go in and get these links and make notes of where you can go and get that that little target or that little color palette that he created for you. It seemed to work very interesting with the color slider, so that you could actually change the colors very quickly. So I might find myself in the near future playing with it too, just to get familiar with it. So again, that's basically why it was here for tonight. We're talking about things like this, and I just thought it was very appropriate. This is Understanding Color and Value.
Hey everyone, Cypriasin here, and in this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about converting grayscale to color and some of the problems people run into when doing that. So, to begin with, I have this sentence. The boy wore a red shirt and yellow pants. So, here's the boy. And we're going to give him a red shirt and yellow pants. But first, I'm just going to go ahead and color him. So, let's color in. And what I've done here, by the way, is created a clipping layer, and it's set to color mode. And color in the skin. And if you don't know how I'm just coloring the skin, it's explained in other tutorials, so I'm not going to go in depth on that here. And now for the hair, give him brown hair. So basically it's just changing the color of the thing to whatever I want. So that's why I'm able to do that. Let's give him like blue shoes, I guess. All right, and red shirt and yellow pants. So shirt, red shirt. Wait, no, I want this kind of red. Right. Yellow pants. No, white. I want this yellow, not. What's going on? Do I suck at color? Why doesn't Photoshop work? Well, let's figure that out. So what's going on that's wrong here? Why does the shirt look pink and the pants look, I don't know, this ugly
Mustard.
yellowish color? Well, it has to do with the relationship between color and value. So I made this chart up, and you can go to Psycher.net, go to the resources, and here, color to reference value, click that, and you can download it yourself. And what it's done is it's separated the colors into their values. Now, every color has its own inherent value, so every local color. So when you think of yellow, it has its own range, and it's not that large. So for yellow, it's in the high range. And so you can look at this value scale, and it's, it's from like 8 to 10, and mostly in 9 is where, when you think of the color yellow, it's in that range. Now, by contrast, red is a very low range. So the value of red is very dark compared to the value of yellow. Orange is kind of in the middle, and I arranged it this way because it's kind of like it goes yellow to orange to red almost by value. With blue, though, it's got a much larger range. So you could have, and I know there's lots of different colors that could be thought of as blue, so this isn't to say these are all the blue colors. These aren't all the yellow colors. And also, I am aware that in a previous tutorial, I talked about how when you color, you don't think about, blue, purple, green. You think about warm and cool. This isn't geared to warm and cool. This is just about color in terms of the hue. So anyway, so blue has a big range, and so does purple. Green, it has quite a big range, but a bit less than blue. Now, my standard is that if you go much darker or much lighter, it becomes hard to identify this as green. So of course you could go even lighter with blue, but it gets to the point where you can't tell if it's blue or if it's white. So this is mainly just, for recognizable blue colors that you can just look and like, yeah, definitely that's blue. Yeah, definitely that's green. So with red, if you go lighter, you'll end up with a pink color, and it won't be red anymore. So it's very limited. So now when we go back to this guy, our boy, and I just turn off the color, you can see that the problem wasn't that the color was wrong. It's that the value of this was way too light. Because if we look here, this value is maybe the 6. And so if we had painted this orange, it would have been fine, right? Because it fits in that value range. But because we went for red, and red should have been one of these much darker values, then we ran into some problems. So let's see if this works. So I'm just going to dock this. I'm going to keep the colors the exact same. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of the value, not the color of the color. So I'm just going to change the value of the shirt. And we want a red shirt. So I'm going to pick a value that is in this range, right? So say, just going to paint it over and turn back color. There we go. And if that is a bit too dark, you can raise the value a bit. And there, it's much closer to a red. Same thing with yellow, right? So there's this, and let me just change the value to a lighter value. Let's say this value, 9. And turn back the color, and now it's a yellow color. So this is really important when you're usually when you're doing more complex pieces, and this is a pretty simple drawing. But what can happen is you'll go from grayscale to color, and you'll run into these problems where the color you put down isn't the color you want. And you might try and fix it by just saying like, okay, is my color wrong? Did I pick the wrong color? But it's not about the color, it's about the inherent value of the color. So that's pretty much it. Just remember that every color has an inherent value. And the more desaturated you go, so if I went to a brown, for instance, the more open this is, this value range. So even if I was thinking of yellow and I wasn't thinking of recognizable yellow, but just some color that fits into yellow. So for instance, this wouldn't, it's not what I'd think of as a yellow, but it's still in this yellow range. Then it would work because it's more desaturated. And remember, this going in this direction is more saturated. This is less saturated if we use the traditional Photoshop. This is more saturated in the right side, but less saturated on the left side. So you get a lot more variation in the low saturation. But with blue, you get a lot of variation throughout, and it's still going to look like blue. All right, so I hope that helped, and thanks for watching.
Okay, so one question you might have right off the bat is, how was he able to isolate the different parts of his caricature with the colors? He did that by creating a series of transparent layers that were masked. So when you saw him painting the face and the arms and the legs, he had the arms, the face, and the legs on a masked layer. The layer was, there was no arms or layer on it. It was just a transparent layer where he masked everything but the areas where the face would show, the arms and the legs. Everything else was masked out. And then he used a blend mode with the color to wash over those exposed areas. Now, if you were to take a look at the unmasked layer, you'd see that he just painted, and they're just blobs of paint in the areas where the legs and the arms and the face are. But because he created these masks, the only areas that you saw were within the mask areas. So it's almost like creating a silhouette. If you were taking a picture of, if you were using a picture of me, you're going to see I have a girl in Photoshop. I'll show it to you. Here it is. So here's the Photoshop, and here's the girl, okay? So in a sense, what he was doing is this. He took the girl and he masked the girl out, okay? So that's how I did this. I did this with a mask. Now, I made the mask permanent by expanding it. You know, I made her permanent, but she was masked. So he did the same thing, except that his mask would be the face, the chest area, the arms. That would be one mask. And that's how he would get the color in there. The shirt would be another mask, and it would go around the entire edges of the shirt, all the way around the shirt. That would be the second mask. The jeans would be a third mask. That's essentially how he did it, okay? And this is a masked object. This is what it looks like. So if his mask's done properly, all right, he could go in with his mask and he can paint over it in color. And because the mask is still live, where mine is no longer live, mine is basically, the mask is gone. She's just basically there. In other words, I'd have to create a mask to do her. But that's essentially what he did. He created a series of masks for the different area. There's the face and the arms. That would be on one. And there would be nothing on that layer but just the open space within the mask. So when he took his color and he painted with something like color or hue, what would happen is that would make a semi-transparent layer of color that you'd be able to see through to the grayscale image below. That is essentially how he did that. It's actually a lot simpler than you might think. Let's take a look at Photoshop making colors. He's quiet.
So I created this album cover, just fictitious album cover you see here called Rock Your Face Off. And I have all these different layers, and I'm thinking to myself, if I have to change all these colors, this is going to take forever. So a few things you can do at this point. One is to keep all the layers the way they are and adjust them. The other one is to flatten them and adjust it kind of globally. Alright, so if I try to keep the layers the way they are, and I look at this and I say, okay, I need to make a triadic color scheme out of this. And I say, okay, well, I'm going to go with a red, yellow, blue color scheme. I already have blue in the background, so I can just leave that alone. Even though I know that background is comprised of about 2 to 3 layers. So I'll leave that alone. And I need some yellow. So maybe what I do is I say I want to make the boy, actually I want to make the boy red. And the text can be yellow, that way it's easy to see, easier to read. So text to be yellow, what I can do is I can just double click on my text. It's still active, editable text. And up here is a swatch. I'll click on this. I just go to any yellow color that I want, like that. I hit OK. And there we go. Now I have yellow text. Now, if I had a color overlay on that text, and this I don't, but if I did, what I could do, undo that step, I would just, I have some effect. I could just double click on this. And I would go to color overlay, I would click on this, and here's where I would change the color. Like that. So if there was a color overlay on it, I would just go here and change the color that it was using. So that's that. Now I just need to make my picture of my little boy here red. So to do this, I'm just going to do it very quickly and crudely. Select on his layer, and if I want, I can turn the text layer off to hide it. And go to Image, Adjustments, Hue, and Saturation. Now I can just slide the hue the way it is. You see how it'll turn reddish and things like that, especially a shirt, a flat color. If I want, I can also click Colorize. And notice it almost goes to a sepia tone by default. I can just crank up that saturation and really make him red and like this. And of course I can adjust the lightness and the darkness of that. So let's say it was like that, and I hit OK. And now I can see I definitely have a triadic color scheme here. Yellow, red, and blue. Of course I could change this blue to make it more bright blue if I wanted, but I'll leave it the way it is. Now I don't want to save this over the top of my original image. You can see here, the file I started with was rockyourfaceoff.pst. I just want to copy, so I'm going to go File, Save As. And in here, I'm going to select JPEG, and rockyourfaceoff underscore triad. I'm going to save that to the desktop for now. Hit OK. So, eventually what's saving a JPEG is to make a copy of the file, and it doesn't actually change the file I'm working on. So I still have all my layers here editable. So I'm going to back up here a bit. I'm going to go to right here. Alright, so I started over and said, well, that was one method, but I might have a whole bunch of layers, and it's going to take a while to adjust things. What I could do is just flatten them down. So I'm going to the panel menu here and flatten, or I go to layer menu, flatten image way at the bottom. Now it's all just one thing. If I do this, before I do anything else, so I don't lose my layers, I would go Save As, the JPEG. I can face off, underscore, triad 2, I'll call it. Save that. So now I don't have to worry about it accidentally saving over the original PSD. I'm looking at the JPEG now. Now I'm just going to Image, Adjustments, Hue, and Saturation. There's 2 ways I can do it. One way is to just adjust everything like this way. See, a lot of things will change on the fly. Another way is I can go here and I can say, well, the oranges and the kind of yellow tones are what I need to be turning red, so I can just go to yellows. So adjust the hue until it becomes a red color. You see the orange is going with it, there's a lot of yellow in that orange. I'll hit OK. That works for that. And then to make this text yellow, what I could do is go to Select Color Range. I want to do just the highlights, and then Image, Adjustment, Hue, and Saturation.
Oh, cut off.
So the students are instructed here.
All right. Anyway, I am going to be showing you some of this. I'm going to be showing you this now. I'm going to put this aside. I have one more, which is cooler, and we'll save that. I want to do a little bit of work on my thing first before I show you all this. So here, let me bring these pictures back. So here's my composition. And one of the things that you're being asked to do, actually two of the things that you're being asked to do, is to fool around with saturation, partial saturation and selective saturation. So and again, I have no idea how much you know or don't know about Photoshop. Personally, I think those videos that I just showed you, all three of them were pretty excellent videos on how to play around with color. I'm doing something similar here. I created this composition. Basically, the composition is this girl. She's silhouetted, and she's placed in front of this building, which is placed in front of that sky. Okay? So there's the sky, the building. There's also this little emblem here, which is like a poster or a piece of signage, I guess. So there you've got your three elements. Now, what I did here was I created a hue saturation layer, which I've hidden. Now, when I click on this, what it does essentially is it partially desaturates the entire image. As you can see, it is not fully saturated or desaturated. Now, if I come in here and if I double click on this, okay, actually here, I think I got to do it. Here it is, right here. There we go. I think this is it. Yeah. I can come over here and I can bring back the saturation. And you see how I'm bringing back the saturation? I'm going to bring it back to 0. And now my saturation has been normalized. So what I did essentially was with this hue and saturation layer selected again, I've actually drifted the saturation slowly down. And as I drift it down slowly, what happens is she becomes closer and closer to a fully desaturated image. If I bring it all the way down there, this is completely desaturated, and you're seeing all the color being removed, and this is basically a nice, clean, crisp, black and white version. Now, again, to bring it slowly back up, I'm just playing with saturation now. I'm going to start slowly bringing it up until I get to a point where I like it. There, she's partially saturated. Now, since this layer, if you know about Adobe Photoshop, since this layer is up above everything, okay, since it's above everything, then this is acting on everything. So everything beneath this is getting this level of hue and saturation. You see? Now, if I come over here and place my cursor right here, and if I hold the Alt key down, can you see what happens to my cursor? What happens is it's pointing to the layer below. And if I click on it, what happens is I now have the saturation layer only affecting the girl. So if I come over here, I can drag this all the way out there. See what I can do? On just the girl, I can make her look nuts. If I come down a little bit less and less, I can give her a bad sunburn. Or I can bring her back to pretty much normal by bringing it to 0. And then I can start working down, desaturating her slightly. And I end up to where I got her desaturated and my background saturated. Okay? So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this away, and I'm going to come up here. Right in here is where you get this, the effects. Right here. Hue and saturation. Click on hue and saturation, and once again, I get a hue and saturation layer. And again, if I want to play with the hue, I can change the hue of this. Okay. which I don't really want to do. What I'm really looking to do is I'm really looking to play around with the saturation. So let me get it back to 0. No, I've got double 0. I want just 0. Okay, and what I'm really going for is I'm going for the saturation. And I'm going to desaturate this down until I get to where I was before, which was somewhere in there. Okay, so that's that. I also got a hue saturation layer here. And what I'm doing with this is I'm desaturating everything beneath that layer. So if I hide this, it all comes back. If I show it, I can come in here and I can saturate the bejesus out of this, and I can get, well, actually, I got the wrong layer selected. That's what the problem is. Let me click on that layer, and let me saturate this real big time. See what happens? She looks normal, but the rest of it looks like it's somewhere in Oz. All right, so I really don't want to do that. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to desaturate it. So I'm now desaturating this thing. I'm bringing it way down to where there's no, actually now it's all black and white, and she is in color. So really, when we're talking about partial, selective, and complete saturation, I just showed you several ways that you could play around with partial saturation, which is what this is. Something is saturated, or I shouldn't say something is saturated. Something has a normal saturation range, and something has been modified, all right? Now, again, I can come over here and I can slowly bring this slider up a little bit, and now I've got partial saturation, because again, this background has been lightened down, putting emphasis on her. So I think if you take a look at how this is working, you can kind of understand why people would do something like this. If I had a photograph, and the photograph, the most important aspect of the photograph was this girl, what I would want to do is I would want to perhaps come in here and do what I'm doing right here, where I have her separate on a separate layer, and what I will do is I'll go in and I'll modify the background layers so that I get kind of a saturation dealy going here. And this way she looks like normal, and the emphasis is being placed on her, and the background isn't out of focus, but it's been dulled down. And I believe what you would consider with this is that it's kind of taken some of the emphasis off of the background, and it's focusing more on this girl. So again, these are why you would do it and how you would do it. The most important part of this whole deal is that you have layers. She's on a layer, the background's on a layer, and that sky is on a layer. Okay? And you can come up and you can do a full saturation thing, all right, where you basically come in here and desaturate everything, or come in here and you could do a partial saturation kind of a thing. All right, so that's really what this is all about, and this should give you a little bit of an idea of what you can do with your images when you create them. The most important thing for you is to create some masks to do this with. And I guess I don't know whether you know how to do these masks or not, but essentially what you do is this girl was against a white background, and what I was able to do is I was able to go in there and I was able to make a selection around her. And I was able to get her cleanly selected, and I went into select, I went into refine mask, and you can refine the mask and sort of soften the edge or blur the edge or feather the edge, which is, I kind of did that. I kind of feathered the edge a little bit. It does make it look a little bit more natural if you do that. So that's basically how I did that. This photo here, what I wanted to do is I wanted to show the sky. This had a very bland white sky. So what I did was I went in there and I used a mask on that. See, here actually is I can show you the mask. I can disable that mask. Click on it, and let's click on this. And I'm not seeing it go away, though. It's not. It should be going away. Yeah, I don't know. let me see, disable layer mask. There you go. Okay, there you go. So now you see what's happening up here? You see how that was just sort of a very dull white? Well, what I did essentially was I made a mask. And that mask, click it back on, that mask basically allowed me to bring this picture of the sky into play. Okay, so this is really, originally this was a flattened layer and this was the bottom or the basemost layer. I put a mask on it, the mask is right there. I use the mask, I create the mask down here, and then I just basically fill the top area with black, as you can see this, all right? If I select it, maybe I can show it to you. Let's see. Come on. No, I can't. I can't really show it to you. It's not going to let me switch over to it. But anyway, that's what it is. I basically put black up in there. And wherever you got black, the area is going to show through. So when I made the mask of this girl, essentially what I did was I had everything outside here black, and this area in the middle here was white. And where the white is, she shows through. The same with this building. Where the black is, that area gets hidden, the sky shows through. The white area is where the house or the building is showing through. Okay? So then what this other guy was talking about, I think is kind of interesting as well. Let me hide these masks, these hue saturation layers. What he was talking about was he was talking about doing a color effect. So here, if you want, come in here and do a color overlay. Now, the primary colors we have here are yellow, blue, and red. Now, I have blue up in the sky, so let's do this. Let's come in here and let's do a color overlay, and let's make this color overlay of the buildings. Let's make that a bright yellow color. Just find a bright yellow and fill it with a bright yellow, and hit OK. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use a blend mode. We're going to try color. And you see what it does. Essentially, it turns that into a color. Let's see if we have another one we could use. Hue. There. So now we have hue. And that one, I think, probably makes a little bit more sense. So let's hit OK. So now what we've done essentially is we've come in here and we've added a color overlay to this picture. And now suddenly you've got your blue, and now you've got your yellow. And let's do the same thing to the girl. Let's select the girl layer, and let's come down here and click on this, and let's go to, again, let's go to hue and saturation. And this time, you know what, I'm sorry, edit, I don't want to do that. What I meant to do was, I get rid of that. I'm not thinking. Girl, we're going to come to here, the effect, and we're going to go color overlay. That's what we're going to do. And then I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to bring this down to a very bright red. I think I probably want the top red. Go all the way up to the top. I think that's the red I'm looking for. That's actually kind of, let's try the red down here. I wanted something bright, hot, sort of like that. That's probably good. There we go. And hit OK. And now again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to try color first, and we get this very bright and gaudy red. Okay. You can also modify the opacity on this. Bring the opacity down, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. Okay. And you can get a softer red. See, now she's just sort of like pink, and that actually doesn't look too bad. Or you could come up to full value like this and hit OK. And then you can do the same thing in here with this color overlay. Click on the color overlay, bring it back up, and then let's try hue instead of saturation. Now she is largely red, and the rest of it stays a little bit more natural looking. And again, we can modify the opacity of this by bringing it down. I tend to like it a little bit stronger, but I think probably halfway between the two would probably be good. Somewhere in that neighborhood right there would be okay. And then come back to the building color overlay, and let's come in here and let's play around with the color overlay, and let's bring some of that back. Bring it down just a little bit so it isn't quite so predominant. And there we have both of these. If I hide this, you can see it immediately comes back to normal. And if I hide the girls, where are we at here? Color overlay, that comes back to normal. Okay, so really it has to do with hue and saturation, and also it has to do with color overlay. So you got two different things that you could work with here: color overlay and a hue and saturation layer. Hue and saturation, you're creating a layer and you're putting an effect on when you're using the color overlay. So there's two different ways that you're going about doing this. Now, finally, the other thing that you could do is if you go to the window menu and go to channels, I just want to quickly show you that if you're going to make something totally grayscale, you have 3 channels in here. Each of these channels is a grayscale channel. There's one grayscale channel. There's one grayscale channel. And there's the other grayscale channel. Right. Actually, this one it's not showing me. There's one, there's another. Each of these are grayscale channels. Okay, and composite RGB, the composite channel RGB is where you're seeing all the, this is obviously a red, green, and blue image. So you're looking at the 3 layers, and that's the yellow or the blue layer, and then the red, green layer, and then the red layer. So you're now looking at the red layer, and you're going to come down here and click on this, click this one off, and now you're looking at the blue layer. And click this one on, click this one off, and now you're looking at the green layer. So each one of these grayscale images are also usable. You can use these if you wanted to. I could go image mode and go grayscale. And if I discard all this information, hit OK, and it's going to want me to rasterize. Don't rasterize. Discard. I end up with something like this, which is not a particularly nice grayscale image, okay? But realize that we only got one layer now. We only got that grayscale layer because we threw out those channels. So let's go edit, undo grayscale, and come back in. If I want a nice grayscale, I can either try one of these layers, like that layer there, and see if that layer looks good to me, okay? Or I can use this layer here and see if that layer looks good to me, or this one. Or I prefer, I think, probably to go back to my hue and saturation layer right here. And I think what I probably want to do with this is I probably want to just go with the hue and saturation here, because I get kind of a nice, I get a really nice grayscale image. And then I would save this as, if I were going to use this on the web, I'd go File, Save As, and desktop 116, actually hit cancel. What I would do is go File, Save for Web, actually. Save for Web. This is just better. This is just better, do this easier. Okay, and as you can see, what it's doing is it's setting me up with a grayscale version of my image. There she is. And now it's a ping 24. We don't need this to be a ping 24 because, frankly, it really should be a JPEG. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go JPEG medium, and I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to call this my corporate _ gray. And I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go to 116 right there. And I'm just going to save it in week 3. Open. And now it's saved. So that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be playing around with your images, whether you want to cut the images apart, make masks out of them like I did here, or whether you want to just do it in its totality and make it either, you know, totally desaturated or partially desaturated, or both. In each case, you'd be doing different ones. I'll bring it back so we can see it. Partially desaturate one maybe, and totally desaturate another, okay? So that's basically what I wanted to show you. Now, what I want to do before I end tonight is I want to open up a document since you have to make 6 pages, I want to just quickly show you how to go about making a document in InDesign and saving it as a PDF so that you'll be able to do that. I hope you know how to do it, but if you don't know how to do it, I'll do it very quickly, just so that you get the general idea of how it's done. So give me a second to get this open. And this I can sort of close down. And see when we get InDesign up here. It takes a minute to open this up. It's a pretty big document. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open this up and I'm going to make, I believe you have to make a 3-page, 6-page. You got to make a 6-page document, 6-page PDF. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a 6-page document. They're not going to be a booklet document. They're going to be individual pages. I'll show you how to do that. And then after I do that, I will save it as an Adobe PDF so that you could see how that is done. So you actually have no problem doing it. Again, you may know this. I don't know. But if you don't know it, you'll at least see me do it, and that will help. Yeah, unfortunately, this is opening up very slow. It's a pretty big program. Here we go. Okay. InDesign, I think there's going to be a pop-up window. Go File. New, yeah, here it is. I knew there was going to be a pop-up window. You could either create your document here. Okay, I'll show you in a second. You can create your document in here. Go to Create, and then a new print document. You can either do that. Click on this, and you get that. Okay, hit Cancel, or close this out. Go File, New Document. And again, you get the same thing. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to be a print document. I'm going to set the number of pages to 6. So there will be 6 pages. Now, I worked on something, and my book is set to not facing pages, which means essentially individual pages. If I clicked on facing pages, then my pages would face one another as though it were a bigger piece that opened up like a folded book. But mine are going to be individual pages, so I deselected this number of pages, 6, starting with page 1. Page size is letter size, 8.5 by 11. The number of columns are 2. So there's going to be 2 columns on my page, which I think are enough, and probably enough for yours. And then there's a gutter. A gutter is basically, and that's a big gutter. I don't want a big gutter like that. I want like, I don't know, like maybe 16 point, okay? 16 point. Let's try that and see what that looks like. Or 1 point, let's try 1.6. 1.6 actually. And the margins are 0.25. And the bottom is 0.75. That's fine. And this right and left is 0.5. 0.5 essentially means half an inch. 0.25 means a quarter of an inch, and the bottom is 75. That's 3/4 of an inch. So what we have here is basically a print document, 6 pages, letter size, 8.5 by 11, number of columns 2, and I got 0.222 of an inch, which means I hope it's going to be rather small, and then 0.25 inch, which is the top. At the top, there's going to be a quarter of an inch space. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. And the left and right, half inch, and at the bottom, 3/4 of an inch. So when I hit OK, there's my first document. And actually, my margins are very close to one another. So I probably want to go Layout, Margins, and Columns. And let's make my margin, point 1 to 0.125 of an inch. Let's make that a little bit bigger. There we go. That's a little bit better. That's an 1/8 of an inch margin. So here's your columns. There are 2 columns, and you got an 1/8 of an inch margin, 3/4 of an inch at the bottom, a half inch on either side, and a 1/4 of an inch at the top. And if I come over here and I find my layers panel, I'm sorry, not my layers panel, I want my pages panel. That's my pages panel. Let me drag it out so you can see it. What I basically have here is I basically have 6 pages. So I got page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and each one of them look exactly the same. Actually, this I would have to come in here and I would have to change the margins on all of these things because I made them. And now if I wanted to make all the same, I'd have to select it and go layout, margins and columns, and come in here and point 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, and hit OK. And now I got 1/8 of an inch. Have to do it again for this one and this one and so on. I'm not going to bother with that though. Okay, I think you get the idea. So we got 6 pages. You got 2 columns here. Just keep in mind that whatever you put on this page has to be in a box. So I'm going to create a box, and I'm going to drag the box out like that, and I'm going to go File, Place, and I'm going to go up to my week 3 DES 116, and I'm going to go into week 3, and I don't see my, let's see, maybe it's out here. Where's my girl? I don't see her. She's not there. All right, so you know what? I'm going to have to put in my corporate PSD. Hit OK, and there's the picture. I'm going to go to the Object menu. I'm going to go Fitting, Fit Content Proportionately, and there she's been reduced to fit within that box. So there's my image, and you're going to use that. That's how you're going to bring your images in. And if you want to put a title on here, you got to click and drag a box out, and I'm going to call this My Corporate. Okay, so now I've added my corporate, and I'm going to select it, and because you're going to make a heading out of it, I'll make this like maybe 24 point, make it even bigger. Let's make it 36 point, and maybe make it bold. Bold, there. So there's my heading, and then I would create a subheading the same way, format it. All right, so basically get the general idea. You're going to create boxes to put your copy in. If you want 2 columns, you create 2 columns. If you want 1 column, you just create a 1-column box. That's basically how to set the document up. Now to save this for submission, you go File, Export, right here. File, Export, and you're going to choose week 3 of my DES 116, Adobe Print PDF. That's what I'm using, and I'm going to call this my project. Of course, you're going to name it, and it's going to be a PDF. It's going to be named based on whatever it is that you need to name this. It tells you, and hit Save. And now the Export PDF dialog box comes out, and probably what you're going to want to do is you're going to probably want to go to high quality print or smallest file size, and you're going to print all pages. You don't have to do anything else because this is all you need to do. And again, what you're going to do is select maybe the smallest file size and all the pages. That's all you have to do with this. Hit Export. And then this document, don't worry about that. And now I'm going to close this up because I'm done with it. Save changes? No. And when I come into my corporate, let's go into my desktop. 116, week 3, and there's my project PDF. If I double click on this, it opens up, and there's my page. And as I scroll down, you can see I got the number of pages 1 to 6. And I can scroll down, and you're going to see the next page come up, the next page. Now, the guides do not print. So that's why you're not seeing the guides. They don't print. They're there for your layout purposes. But there's your 6-page PDF that you're going to submit to me. Okay? That's it. We're done for tonight. I hope you all got something out of this. And don't forget, if you need any help or anything, give me a call, send me an email. Thank you and have a good night.